Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast for military and veterans. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, and provide value and solutions to help make life more abundant. Thanks so much for coming back for another episode, everyone. Today we have Rose back on the show from last week's episode, and we're going to be talking about psychiatric care, psych wards in the U.S. and what that looks like currently. So first of all, Rose, thank you so much for coming back.
I'm so happy that you asked for me to come back. I'm excited to talk.
Yes, I appreciate it so much. So I want to first talk about a little bit about the history of psychiatric care in the US. And so I did a little bit of Googling, and it looks like psychiatric care, as far as like an institutionalized thing, started in the 1900s. And they wanted to establish like a moral kind of treatment, which is kind of ironic because I think when we think back to like the old school asylums and psychiatric care, like you think of like the lobotomies and like the gruesome stuff that they used to do when they thought they were helping people. My mind actually goes to that. I don't know if you watch the show Ratched on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what my mind goes to. And I'm like, that dude literally thought he was helping, but they're doing like horrible things to people. But that's what I think of. And so I think that there's still a lot of this stigma today about psychiatric care and being considered crazy if you go to the psych ward. So I'd love to just get into talking about what the experience is like when you check into the psych ward.
Well, I will agree that the stigma even hit me. The first time that I was ever even told when I was at the ER and they told me, hey, you're going to go to a psychiatric ward in Madigan, I did freak out. I was trying to convince them any which way to not have me go there because I was scared because of the stigma of like, oh, they're going to put me in a straitjacket. They're going to put me in a padded room. I don't know what to expect. They just tell you kind of, they hand you this piece of paper of what to pack, which is almost like nothing. It's like pack 5 things of underwear, bras with no wiring, a toothpaste, just like a whole bunch of other random things. Most of the other things will be given to you depending on which psychiatric ward you go to. So this first one I went to, it literally was just telling me to just pack underwear and bras and a toothbrush. Otherwise, everything else will be provided for me. And I was, again, very terrified. Eventually, I didn't really have a choice. I was forced to go because of a overdose incident. So the entire drive, which was like a 2-hour drive to the hospital, I was just like panicking even more. The first responders, the ambulance that were there to take me were the nicest, sweetest men. I was asking them about it and they said, don't worry, like it's nothing like you expect. And when I showed up, it really wasn't. At first, when you do get there, they will do a strip search on you. That's at any psychiatric ward I've been to, which it's more so for your protection and the protection of other patients to make sure you're not hiding anything sharp or dangerous, cigarettes, tobacco. It's crazy what I've even seen people try to sneak in. And then after that, at this first one, they handed me just a hospital gown and I changed into their gown. They locked away my clothes that I came with into a locker. And then I had a separate locker for my underwear, my bras, my hygiene stuff to be able to have access to when it was hygiene time. When they showed me to my room, it was like, since this is a military podcast, the beds that they give you is just like the ones that they give you in boot camp. The worst mattresses, you have the worst sleep. So I always thought it was so funny. Every morning they always ask you like, how did you sleep? How are you feeling? What's your mood like? And every morning everyone's just like, I slept horribly. They're like, oh, why? It's like, well, have you slept on those mattresses? So it's very bland as well. in that area, there's not really much to look at. There's not really photos up in the walls, and the photos that they have actually are made almost from like that mattress material. It's soft. So if it were to come off, you can't hurt yourself or anybody with it either. It's a very bland area. And even the people that I've met in there, it's not like you see in Hollywood. It's not like anything like that. It's just normal people that you probably have even worked with, just had a really hard time and just needed a break. I will say the best part about wards is you don't really have to clean up after yourself, like make your beds or worry about laundry or anything like that. Cooking or cleaning dishes, everything is just given to you. And all you can eat ice cream at pretty much all the places I've ever been to has always been a thing, and that's been the best. I hate saying and I keep doing that. But I don't know, it's not, I hate the stigma about it, because even then, whenever I do talk to friends of like, or even potentially new friends, and it comes to that time of like, oh, have you ever been hospital? Like, I don't know, the conversation just comes up at some point about just like your past, like what was the military like? And somehow the conversation of being at psychiatric wards does come up. And at first I will get the look of like, oh, she's crazy, crazy. Because they just envision padded rooms, nurses with like needles in their pockets, getting ready to sedate patients, which is not at all anything like that. It's very relaxed. The nurses have also all been great. They're very supportive people. I have not met a single doctor or nurse at any of the wards that I've been to, and sadly I've been to about 7 of them, that were horrible or mean.
So, what kind of people do you see in the psychiatric ward? Are they like, because I think what I'm trying to get at is that people do think that the kind of people you see in the psychiatric ward are like the ones who are like beyond helping, that need sedated all the time. Like they're not even, like you can't hold a conversation with them, or like they just can't function as human beings. Do you see people in there that are just in there because like, hey, I'm dealing with depression really bad and I decided to check myself into the psych ward, or like anxiety, or, these mental illnesses that really just about every single person in the US experiences currently? Do you see people like that in there?
Absolutely not. But I don't know if that's because I've only been to military ones. So all the military ones, it's just it's normal people that you would see on the streets. One of the ones I went to, it was a 30-day program. So you're locked up for 30 days, no phone. They do have phones at the wards. You just have to kind of wait your turn. They have specific hours to be able to call out. But there's this one specifically, it was actually a mixture of mental health and rehab. So I guess that was the only one where it wasn't just like my normal, okay, we're all a little bit crazy here, we're all very depressed. But then also you kind of realize at rehab, a lot of them are depressed, and that's why they go to such lengths as drinking. And the 12-step program that they use for rehab, they have one for depression that is the same kind of 12 steps. Everything that you can learn at a rehab goes very much along with seeking help for mental illness, which I thought was very interesting and cool to learn about. But it is not, I haven't met one person there that I thought was like, oh my gosh, this person's absolutely insane, they should be locked up forever. It's all very good people that just are having a really hard time in life.
So do you think that people that say just are having a really bad bout of depression in the military, because I know like we come across them a lot, at least I did. Do you think that it'd be helpful for them, or do you think that it puts kind of I guess, a stain on your record? Because I think that's probably the biggest thing in the military. Isn't necessarily the regular stigma that you get as a civilian, right? But then also that stigma of, oh, how is this going to affect me in the military and like my
Mm-hmm.
record in the military, you know?
I will say once I got to the point where they finally had enough and they were sending me and they told me they were going to send me to psychiatric ward, um, that was my first instinct as well, was I was scared because I wasn't sure if I wanted to give up my whole career and what would this look like in my career in the military. But then I got to the point where I just didn't care anymore. I needed help. But that sucks that it feels like it had to get to that point where I felt like, oh, I just don't care enough anymore about a career. I need to focus on my mental health. There should be a balance. There shouldn't be the stigma um, of this. Well, this person got sent to a psychiatric ward because it does get hushed, at least for me. But I still feel like it gets leaked out of why wasn't this person at work or because they weren't on leave. And you do kind of come back with a lot of eyes on you, especially a lot of higher ups, because it isn't something that is, well, at least lower ranked. It was kept very quiet, but higher ranks, it's not, just because now you're being watched. Um, when I came back from my first trip to that hospital, I was being talked to by people I didn't even know. And that felt kind of uncomfortable that they even knew my situation, that they even knew that I went to a hospital. And it did feel like, in a sense, that it could make it harder for you to do more in your career because they don't want to put more on you, even if it's not specifically your career that made you go to the hospital. It feels like they will hold you back. And that's what sucks, is going to a hospital to kind of get a reset button should not hold you back from advancing in your career. And I think there is a whole idea of telling sailors or soldiers or Marines and stuff not to go to a hospital.
So when you were in, since you went to military specific hospitals, do you know what variation of ranks of people were there? Like were there officers or were there like E7s, E8s, E9s? Do you have any idea?
Oh yeah, we all would talk about it. We'd all tell deployment stories, sea stories, even though the nurses and the doctors would please ask us not to, because there were a lot of people in there for PTSD reasons. So we don't know what could trigger others, but everyone ends up talking. We all get curious. We want to know about each other's history and backgrounds. There was like an '07 from the Marines that I met at one psychiatric ward and was the coolest, nicest guy, was just having a hard time. And luckily, his command sent him there after he was begging them to send him out. And then I've met people that have just got out of boot camp and joined and had to go in because they just couldn't handle the army. I've met all different types from any branch, any rank, it doesn't matter.
So then how's the healthcare itself when you're in the psychiatric ward? Because I think there's this like military healthcare. I don't know really know what word to use. I want to say stigma, but like it's not a stigma because it's real. About like how like the healthcare just isn't great. Like if I go to the base here where I live and I want healthcare for like, let's say mental health care, it's going to be a hit or miss. Like some people have
Mm-hmm.
really good experiences, some people have terrible experiences. Would you say overall that it's pretty good when you go
Oh,
to the psych ward?
it's so much better. And the only reasoning for it is none of the doctors are military doctors. They are all civilian doctors. Most of, there was only one hospital out of the about six that I've been to. I've been back multiple times, but there's six different ones I went to. There's only one hospital that was actually located on a base. All the others that the military will try and send you to are actually off base. They're funded by the government and a lot of other resources to help get the hospital going. But it is all civilian doctors, all civilian nurses that care so deeply about their military people.
So I believe we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but let's talk a little bit about like the military side of things while you're going through the psychiatric treatment, and including before and after. So because I know a lot of times when you're, say, like at home base and you're getting any kind of treatment, you still have to be somewhat involved in your job. You still have to like muster or show up or let someone know where you are, what you're doing. What's the process look like immediately before, during your treatment, and then immediately after, as far as like your job and the military, bullshit, for lack of a better word?
Oof. That's a hard one. I sadly, with my story, it took my fourth time going to a psychiatric ward for my old command to actually get the hints that I can't do my job anymore. That everything that they're putting on me, the horrible hours, the just lack of care for my own mental health, and also just realizing like we are relying too much on this person to do way over her job description, for them to finally realize, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. Maybe we should send her to a different place. And that's just the sucky part, was I would get told before I would check out of the hospitals, because you're supposed to have this um, command meeting, and also your own meeting with your support system. They'll talk with you and the doctors. You're 100, by the way, all of this, it's great too, because you're 100% there for everything. You will be hearing everything that your command has to say, what your doctor has to say, how they believe your treatment has been, and you get to even voice to them your own concerns, which I always thought was great. It's just sadly, my command agreed to all of these promises that my doctors and even I said, hey, this needs to change for me to get better. And they would say, yeah, we'll change everything. And a week would go by and I'd be home and I would see the change. And then it was like the next week, it was like, okay, back to how it used to be, because a week should have been long enough, right? But then luckily at this new command that I'm at, they are very, very supportive. When I went to my last 30-day program at a mental institute, they actually listened and they changed everything. They changed my entire work environment. They changed my hours. They listened to what me and my doctors had to say, and they took it to heart, and they just did whatever I needed from them. It just sucks that my old command couldn't do that, because then maybe things could have been different for all of us, but they were just so stuck to, well, we gave her like a month there and this week to kind of readjust back to normal situations. Now let's go back to pile driving everything on her.
So where's the accountability then? Like, who is in charge of overseeing and making sure? Is it like a LIMDU? Is it the LIMDU coordinator, or who's the person that's supposed to make sure that you get taken care of after you leave the psychiatric treatment?
Yeah, it's a mixture of your LIMDU coordinator, your chief and your LPO that you had talked to while talking with your whoever your therapist is at those wards, and uh, and also honestly, even the command's own CO, they listen. They're there. They are listening to it all. They are all responsible, and as well as your own self of voicing, sticking up for yourself. But sadly, I had a really bad backbone at the time, which is no fault on anybody to not be able to speak for themselves. It sucks. That sadly, like, you just get walked over. And the accountability is on every single person that is in that room with those doctors saying, this needs to be it. Otherwise, she cannot do this anymore. Because your therapists at those wards are your biggest supporters. They will fight for whatever they can do for you. It is amazing what they come up with, things that I've never even thought of to help me. They will research the world for you. And it sucks that nobody decides to check back in to make sure those promises are kept. So it is a huge fault in the commands, in the Navy medical, to not go back and see how you are doing and if those promises that were made before you came back to them were kept.
So it sounds like the issue doesn't actually lie within the psychiatric wards. Like, it sounds like those are actually really positive things that a lot of people can take a lot more advantage of. And it sounds like the issue is, again, in the military system.
Yes, 100%.
That's just so crazy to me. And I think, like, knowing that, like, when you say an LPO and a chief holds some kind of level of responsibility on their shoulders, like, I know that the training for chiefs and for LPOs has nothing to do with mental health care. So I almost wonder if it'd be better for some training to include, like, hey, this is what some sailors go through. Like, I personally think there should be like some kind of mental health care training in the military anyway, but especially for people in leadership positions. Do you think that it would have been helpful for them to kind of have an idea of the process when they were trying to help you with these accommodations?
Oh, yes, completely. My chief and my senior chief have even talked to me after the fact, and apologized that they just didn't know what to do. And I have no blame on them, because, to be honest, if I was in their shoes and I didn't get the training and I didn't know what to do, I wouldn't I would kind of shrug my shoulders too, like, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not really sure. Uh, it is a huge factor. Same thing. I've always believed that if you're going to be a leadership in the military, you should know how to handle mental health. You should know how to handle when the people that you're in charge of are not doing okay, and also be able to tell them who they can talk to, where to go, and not fault them too if they do decide to go to those avenues, especially if you don't know what to do. You should, if you don't, and it's fine if you don't know what to do, at least be able to show them where to go to get that help.
So for all the LPOs, chiefs, leadership of any branch listening, what would you recommend that, like, where would you recommend they start? For someone like you who went to a psychiatric facility, what support did you need from your direct chain of command leadership while you're going through that?
The support that I needed was basically for them to not go back on their word, to keep fighting for me to get the help that I needed, and not be like, okay, you can go get this help, but that hour that you went to go get help, we need you to stay an extra hour. Just that, the good balance, not adding more work for somebody that doesn't have the time to be added, well, doesn't have the mental time to add more work onto them.
So, like, basic human decency, essentially, at the end
Exactly.
of the day. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that having some kind of mental health program that is like like a smaller group training, not like your big auditorium trainings, I think it'd be really helpful. But yeah, like, it always goes back to this, like, basic human decency, which blows my mind because it's not hard.
It's
It's
not.
really not. But I can't think of any other questions that I have. If any other ones come up for anyone else, we'll have to do another episode to answer them, because I think that it's really helpful that you are willing to talk about your experiences. Realistically, like, other than from you, and I think one Instagram account that I follow from a girl that, like, actually Instagrammed her experiences in the psych ward. I don't know if they usually allow that, but
They
she
don't.
did.
They
She did
really don't.
somehow.
I have seen those a few times. There was only one ward where they would give us an hour of phone time, and then the rest of the time it'd be locked up. but you definitely were not using your camera at all. Like they had people in the room with us all watching us. I've seen those as well, though, of people documenting their ward times, and it just confuses me. Like, how did you get your phone in there?
Yeah, I don't think I would have the mental bandwidth to want to like document an experience when I'm like focusing on myself. But maybe it's therapeutic for some people. I don't know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be for me personally. But
No.
yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing and some insight into your experiences. And are you able to be a resource if anyone has any other questions that I could come to you and ask you and we could talk about this more? I assume
Oh,
yes, but I'm
100%.
asking.
100%. I would love to. I feel like this was like a good start into showing that don't be scared of psychiatric wards. As I've been to a lot and I've been locked up a lot than I'd like to admit, but never once did I ever see anybody get thrown into a padded room, get a shot on their butt to put them to sleep, or put a straitjacket around them. It is nothing like that.
And I think the biggest other takeaway too from what you shared is that you've been to multiple psychiatric facilities and you obviously didn't get kicked out of the military after the first one. So
No, I'm still in, and I have been back, is it 10 times, 7 different wards, and I'm somehow still here.
yeah, so I know I appreciate you sharing and helping people with that fear aspect, because I think the fear is mostly in the unknown because
Hmm.
no one talks about it. So the
Oh
more we
yeah.
talk about it, the more comfortable people will be seeking help and the appropriate help for them, because not everyone obviously needs that level of mental health care. But I think there's quite a few people in the military that do, and that it would be really helpful for them. So thank you again, Rose, for being on the show. I appreciate you so much. And I will make sure if I get any specific questions that I direct them to you. And hopefully we can help change the stigma.
I would love that.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Each week, I'll be bringing you value in the mental health space and its direct impact on service members and veterans. If you feel you personally got value today from this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star rating and review and share this to your audience. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.